Welcome to the in-service training program for the AMSCO 400 Medium Steam Sterilizer. STERIS has developed this program to help you learn how to properly operate and maintain your AMSCO 400 Medium Steam Sterilizers. Segment 1 briefly explains basic information and required knowledge essential for decontaminating surgical instruments and equipment. Segment 2 reviews components of the AMSCO 400 Series Medium Steam Sterilizer. Segment 3 shows how to operate the AMSCO 400 Series Medium Steam Sterilizer. And Segment 4 reviews routine care and maintenance. These medium steam sterilizers are built to process the increased surgical instrument weight requirements of today's stricter compliance guidelines. AMSCO 400 sterilizers are validated to safely sterilize heat and moisture-stable materials in packs up to 25 pounds. It's designed to fit into existing or new sterile processing departments. With a simple flip-open door handle and one-touch intuitive control, we're confident you'll find the sterilizer easy to operate. The unit is easy to load and unload with the redesigned loading equipment that ensures the transfer carriage is centered with the load every time. Steam sterilization is the most cost-effective and dependable sterilization method available for surgical instrumentation. Steam heats and penetrates rapidly, requires brief exposure time, is non-toxic, and leaves no residues. Because of the high temperatures generated during this process, surgical instruments that are heat and moisture sensitive cannot be sterilized with steam. Please refer to all manufacturer recommendations on sterilization before processing surgical instrumentation. Steam sterilization relies on steam reaching all instrument surfaces. Therefore, proper cleaning, packaging, and loading of the instruments are vital to achieve optimal sterilization results. The sterilization process includes these general steps: manually or mechanically clean instruments to remove visible soils, dry instruments thoroughly, organize instrument trays, include pack control sterility assurance monitoring chemical indicator, package instruments and instrument sets, label and document packages, include load control sterility assurance monitoring indicator, properly load the sterilizer. After sterilization, goods should be stored in conditions that will not compromise the barrier quality of their wrapping materials. Be sure to understand and follow your department's policies and procedures regarding the processes involved with these steps. Safety, yours and the patient's, is an important part of the sterilization process. AMSCO 400 Series sterilizers include a number of important safety features. Be sure to read all of the safety warnings and cautions that are detailed in the safety precautions, sterilization operation, and routine maintenance sections of your 400 Series operator manual. Review the operator manual for the AMSCO 400 Series sterilizer for descriptions of the factory default cycle settings. Pre-programmed settings exist for several common load types, as well as leak and dart tests that are recommended to be run daily. Tests such as the dart or Bowie Dick are designed to document the removal of residual air from a sample challenge load. Run a dart cycle daily before processing any loads in a sterilizer equipped with pre-vacuum cycles. The first pre-vacuum cycle of each day should be used to test the adequacy of air removal from the chamber and load, so that steam can penetrate the load. It is not a test for adequate exposure to heat in terms of time at temperature. In the case of these tests, following exposure in a pre-vacuum sterilizing cycle, the pack is opened, the indicator examined, and conclusions are drawn as to the pattern of residual air, if any, that remained in the pack during the sterilization cycle. Any indication of a malfunction must be reported to the supervisor, and the sterilizer must not be used again until approved by the supervisor. The vacuum leak test cycle, which should be run daily or weekly, measures the integrity of the sealed pressure vessel and associated piping to assure air is not being admitted to the sterilizer during the vacuum drawdowns. After running a leak test cycle, a value or leak rate will be printed on the printer tape. This value will help define a trend over a period of time if the integrity of the system begins to deteriorate or allow air to enter the system. For additional information on sterilization standards and practices, STERIS Corporation recommends that you review the guidelines published by industry associations such as AAMI, AORN, and ISHM. Following these guidelines for cleaning, packaging, and loading instruments is the first vital step for effective steam sterilization. Let's review what we've learned in this segment. When used as a sterilant, steam sterilization is non-toxic and does not leave a residue. Surgical instruments must be properly cleaned, packaged, and loaded to achieve optimal sterilization. Surgical instruments that are heat and moisture sensitive cannot be sterilized with steam. Always wear your personal protective equipment. Before you begin operating your AMSCO 400 medium steam sterilizer, it's important to become familiar with the location and function of the major components and controls. The controls for the sterilizer are contained within the control touchscreen. Control touchpads appear on the screen as needed during each operation. Available controls change as the sterilizer steps through different operations. The main power disconnect switch is located at the left-hand side of the sterilizer on the main control box. The switch disconnects power to the control. Under normal operation, this switch is left in the on position at all times and accessed only when servicing the sterilizer. The steam supply valve is located behind the side access panel or within the wall enclosure above the chamber. Ensure this is in the open position before trying to operate the sterilizer. The water supply valve is located behind the side access panel or within the wall enclosure below the chamber. Ensure this is in the open position before trying to operate the sterilizer. The chamber emergency manual exhaust valve is used only in emergency situations. The valve is to be left in the closed position for normal operation. The sterilizer control touchpad is visible on the control touchscreen whenever the sterilizer is in standby mode. The sterilizer enters operating mode when the on touchpad is pressed. This touchpad switches the sterilizer control between standby and ready conditions. You may notice screen reference numbers appearing in the upper right corner of each display. Numbers are used for reference only and do not relate to the operating sequence of the screen. Now, let's cover the control displays, which can be divided into two categories: those occurring when the sterilizer is out of cycle and those occurring when it is in cycle. Out-of-cycle displays are used to start cycles or set up and adjust sterilizer operation. With the exception of the cycle starting displays, most out-of-cycle displays will only be used occasionally. When the sterilizer is in cycle, displays generally appear automatically, and unless an abnormal condition occurs, require no special attention or instructions. In-cycle displays tell the operator at what temperature and pressure the sterilizer chamber is operating, show the current cycle phase, and indicate when the cycle is complete. When the operator is experiencing an abnormal condition, an alarm display will appear. When an alarm occurs during cycle operation, a display appears on the screen, along with an audible tone. The display indicates the problem as determined by the control sensors and lists a brief troubleshooting list for the operator to follow if possible. If these instructions fail to clear the alarm, consult your supervisor or a trained service technician before continuing to use the sterilizer. A sterilizer equipped with 2 doors will also be equipped with 2 control panels. The control panel at the loading door is referred to as the operating end control. It's used to select and start cycles, abort cycles, set cycles and cycle values, and obtain status printouts. The control panel located at the unloading door is referred to as the non-operating end control. Except for the presence of the printer, control panels at both ends of the unit are similar, and each can be used to start or abort the sterilizer. Now, let's learn more about choosing a cycle. 4 cycle selection touchpads can be shown on the screen. Each pad displays the basic parameters of the cycle name, sterilization exposure temperature, sterilization exposure time, and dry time. Additional cycle options may be selected by pressing More Cycles. The AMSCO 400 series medium steam sterilizer can be programmed to retain values for up to 12 separate cycles. The first 6 cycles are factory default cycles and are routinely displayed on screen 1. Press More Cycles to access cycles 5 and 6. Up to 3 additional cycles can be programmed and displayed. It is important to note that settings in factory cycles have been validated to satisfy the appropriate industry requirements. If cycle sterilization times, dry times, and temperatures other than those set by factory settings are required, it is the responsibility of the healthcare facility to consult and follow the device manufacturer's written instructions. Dart and leak test cycle parameters are fixed. The buttons for these cycles do not display values for exposure temperature, exposure time, or drying time. At times, there may be an occasion to end a cycle before it finishes normally. For this, you use the Abort touchscreen pad. A cycle only needs to be aborted if an abnormal condition or a control problem develops during the cycle. Pressing Abort causes the sterilizer chamber to decompress if pressurized or air brake if in vacuum. The door seal deactivates, the control prompts the operator to open the door, and the sterilizer returns to its normal out-of-cycle state. If an abnormal condition persists after fully aborting the cycle, contact your supervisor or a qualified service technician before trying to operate the sterilizer further. The printer, which records all cycle data, is found next to the control panel. Its function buttons can be found on the control panel's typical in-cycle screen. Options include paper feed, which you would press to feed out paper from the roll stored inside the control. Status print, which provides a printout of the current cycle phase and conditions. Duplicate print, which prints out the last previously run cycle. And print values, which enables the operator to obtain a printout of all currently set cycles and cycle values. The printout reports useful information about each cycle the sterilizer runs, including the load number, which is a unique identifying code, as well as the 2-digit date and month. The procedure for changing the paper will be covered with routine maintenance later in the video. In a horizontal sliding door orientation, the sterilizer door is operated using push buttons near the sterilizer control screen. Pressing the open door push button while the door is in the closed position causes the door to open. Pressing the closed door push button while the door is in the open position causes the door to close. On double door units, there is no control of the power door at the opposite end of the unit. Each door of a double door sterilizer is operated from the end at which the door is located. In a hinge door operation, unlock the door by moving the door lock control toward the right. Grasp the door handle and swing the door open. In all cases, keep the chamber door closed when the sterilizer is not in use. The emergency door opening procedure should only be used when the pressure remains in the sterilizer chamber and the door cannot be opened normally because the sterilizer has lost either electric or water utilities. Do not use this procedure when a liquid load is inside the chamber. It can be used to retrieve a load in the chamber and requires pushing on the door cover to compress the door seal into the groove, then operating the door manually. To open the door in an emergency, remove the lower front panel on the sterilizer. Open the chamber emergency exhaust valve located at the bottom of the unit behind the lower front panel. Do not open the second valve at this time. Monitor the chamber pressure gauge located on the front left side panel. Wait until the gauge reads 0 pounds per square inch pressure in the sterilization chamber. The valve must remain open even after the chamber pressure reaches 0. When the pressure in the sterilization chamber reaches 0 pounds per square inch, open the second emergency exhaust valve. This valve relieves the door seal. Wait approximately 3 minutes for the door seal to exhaust and leave the valve open. Using a towel or sterilizer loading mitt, push the door in at each of the 4 corners. This compresses the door seal into the door seal groove and allows the door to be open. Pull down the lock release lever located at the lower left corner of the door, while moving the door lock handle to the unlocked position. To open sliding door units, once the door seal has been compressed, push the door in the normal direction of travel to open. The door slides stiffly, so be prepared to push hard. Once the door is open, close both emergency exhaust valves. Do not use the sterilizer until a qualified service technician has examined the unit. Further use without attention may damage the sterilizer. Another important safety feature to note is the emergency stop switch. This feature shuts the sterilizer down completely in an emergency situation. Pressing the emergency stop switch disconnects power to the door and valves, causing the door to stop and critical valves to close. An alarm is generated when the emergency stop switch is pressed. An emergency stop key is required to reset the switch. Refer to the alarm procedure in the operator manual to clear the alarm. Do not use the emergency stop switch as a start-stop switch. To properly abort a cycle, press the Abort button on the sterilizer display. Now that you've been oriented to the unit and its basic design and function, let's cover how to operate it and run a cycle. Press the On touchscreen button on the control display. STERIS recommends inspecting the interior chamber and chamber drain strainer each morning before running the daily warm-up cycle. Open the chamber door and check that the drain strainer is clean and in place, and that the chamber interior is clean. Close the chamber door. Verify that the utility supply valves are in the open position. Open the control access door. Check the printer paper roll. A colored warning stripe is visible when the roll is near its end. Run a required test cycle. Refer to the operator manual and internal process requirements for specifics. Once the tests have been run, proceed to loading the sterilizer. Before loading, you must prepare your load by ensuring all materials are thoroughly cleaned. The AMSCO 400 series medium steam sterilizer holds commonly used wrapped or unwrapped instruments and equipment. Wrappers must be made of 100% cotton, 140 thread count 2-ply fabric, and must be laundered. It also handles non-woven disposable wrappers. Limit the weight of each fabric pack to approximately 3.3 pounds and density to 11.3 pounds per cubic foot. This ensures complete steam penetration and minimizes moisture retention. Specific guidelines can be found in AAMI ST8 2008. Limit the weight of each wrapped instrument set to 25 pounds to minimize moisture retention. Next comes placing the loads in the unit. Specific guidelines can be found in AAMI ST79. If a cycle has been run, the unit and shelves may be hot. Wear clean gloves and use clean towels as pot holders when loading. Place all packs on the edge and arrange the load to allow for maximum steam exposure so there's minimal resistance for steam passage through the load. Place utensils and treatment trays on their edges so they'll be sterilized and properly dried. Place instrument sets in trays that have a perforated or mesh bottom. Place flat. If mixed loads of fabrics and hard goods, place the hard goods on the lower shelf. This reduces the wetting of fabric packs from condensate dripping from a hard goods load. Be careful not to overload the sterilizer. Allow for steam penetration between packs. Avoid contact with the wall of the chamber. After placing the load in the chamber, close the chamber door. The sterilizer is now ready to run a cycle. Materials capable of holding water, such as solid bottom pans, basins, and trays, should be positioned so that they're oriented in the same direction and so that condensate can be eliminated. At the end of a cycle, and the end of a cycle tone sounds, open the chamber door. Wear clean gloves and use clean towels as pot holders to carefully remove the load and avoid unnecessary handling. After removing the load from the chamber, close the chamber door and keep it closed to minimize utility consumption. Visually check the outside wrapper for dryness. If there are water droplets or visible moisture on the exterior of the package or on the tape used to secure it, the load is considered unacceptable. To prevent condensation, transfer the load to a surface that is well padded with fabric. Never place a sterilized tray on a solid shelf or cold surface. Once it's cooled, place it on a wire shelf. Then remove the packs or instrument trays from the padded surface when they have reached room temperature. Now, let's discuss transferring a carriage. First, open the sterilizer door. Verify the loading car is securely fastened to the transfer carriage. Align the front end of the transfer carriage with the dock at the base of the sterilizer. Roll the carriage forward until the guide assembly aligns with the sterilizer floor dock. If the transfer carriage alignment is off-center during the approach to the sterilizer, the caster lock disengages. Swiveling casters unlock, allowing for easier alignment of the transfer carriage with the sterilizer chamber. Once the transfer car is aligned, press the carriage forward until the latches mate with the holes in the chamber end frame bracket. Verify the transfer carriage is securely latched by pulling the transfer carriage backward. The transfer carriage should remain stationary. Once the transfer carriage is securely latched, release the loading car from the transfer carriage by pushing down on the carriage lock. Carefully push the loading car off the transfer carriage and fully onto tracks in the sterilizer chamber. Disengage the transfer carriage latches from the end frame by pulling the carriage latch knob. Back the transfer carriage away from the sterilizer and close the chamber door. The sterilizer is now ready to run a cycle. To unload the carriage, first open the chamber door. Move the transfer carriage forward until it aligns with the dock assembly at the floor. The latches on the transfer carriage will engage with the bracket on the chamber end ring. Verify the transfer carriage is latched to the chamber end ring by pulling the transfer carriage backward. The transfer carriage should remain stationary. Once the transfer carriage is securely latched, grasp the loading car handle and carefully pull the loading car from the chamber onto the transfer carriage until the transfer carriage latch engages to the loading car. Disengage the transfer carriage latches from the track inside the chamber by pulling the carriage latch knob. Close the chamber door and transfer the load from the sterilizer area. As mentioned earlier, this sterilizer comes with a set of pre-programmed cycles that comply with all relevant healthcare standards. However, cycle temperatures, sterilization times, and dry times can be changed to meet specific instrument manufacturer reprocessing instructions. You can also choose which cycles are displayed on the main control panel display and change the sterilizer settings. Sterilizer time can be adjusted upward to a maximum of 99 minutes, but neither time nor temperature can be adjusted below the minimum values recommended by healthcare standards. If cycle parameters, sterilize time, dry time, temperature, other than the factory set values are required, it is the responsibility of the healthcare facility to consult and follow the device manufacturer's written instructions for processing. To adjust the sterilizer's operation, press the menu button. The Change Time and Date, Change Cycle Values, Change Machine Setup, and Duplicate Print buttons are displayed. To change cycle values, press the Change Cycle Values button. Then press the cycle button number you want to change. Choose the cycle type. Then choose the cycle parameter you want to change. For example, to change the sterilizer temperature value for a Prevac cycle, enter the desired temperature into the keypad, ranging from 270 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. If you make a mistake, use the backspace button on the keypad to erase what you entered. Press the Exit button to accept the new value, or press the Restore All Default Values button to keep the factory set cycle value and return to the Change Cycle screen. To adjust the sterilized time for a 270 degree Fahrenheit Prevac cycle, enter the new value ranging from 4 minutes to 99 minutes. A 275 degree Fahrenheit Prevac cycle is adjustable from 3 minutes to 99 minutes. To change the dry time, enter the new value using the same range of 1 minute to 99 minutes. If you experience a power failure, you won't have to reprogram cycles. The sterilizer control stores all of your preferences in customized cycles. You can also change other machine setup options such as date and time. To change the time, press the Change Time and Date button and use the keypad to enter the new time, hours first, then minutes. If you make a mistake, press the backspace button to clear the entry. Once you've input the correct time, press the Exit Screen button to go back to the Change Time and Date screen. The date can be displayed in one of 3 formats: day, month, year, month, day, year, or year, month, day. Press the Date Format button to toggle through the options until the preferred format is displayed. Finally, to change the date, press the Date button and use the keypad to enter the new value. Once you have made all of your changes, press the Exit Screen button and go back to the Options screen. You can also use the Auto Utility controls to program the sterilizer to automatically shut off its steam and water at the end of the day to conserve utilities. Shutdown and power-up times can be programmed for any time of the day on weekdays or the weekend. To set up this function, press the Menu button from the main status screen. Press the Change Machine Setup button. Then the Utility Control button. Select Manual or Automatic. If Automatic is selected, you can program the restart and shutdown times for each day of the week. Choose the day, then press Restart Time. Use the keypad to enter the new restart time and press Exit. Repeat for setting up the shutdown time. Proper maintenance ensures a long and productive life for the AMSCO 400 sterilizer. In this section, we'll cover the preventative maintenance schedule and procedures for the operator. For sterilizer monitoring, you'll run a Bowie-Dick or DART test and a vacuum leak test at the beginning of each day the sterilizer is to be used. The Bowie-Dick test indicates if air has been effectively removed from the chamber and challenge pack. This test should be run daily before processing any loads using a pre-vacuum cycle. To ensure valid test results, always run a warm-up cycle before performing a Bowie-Dick test to allow the machine to achieve proper operating temperature. It's important to note that the Bowie-Dick test is not a test for adequate sterilization. All test cycle values are pre-programmed and cannot be adjusted. To initiate a warm-up cycle, press more cycles until the test cycle screen appears. Press the warm-up cycle button. Once the warm-up cycle is finished, place a DART test or properly prepared Bowie-Dick test pack or commercially available test pack on the lowest rack of the sterilizer loading cart and load the cart into the chamber as usual. Place the challenge pack flat, not on edge, on the bottom shelf close to the door above the chamber drain, or as near as is practically possible. Press the DART test button to begin the cycle. The sterilizer temperature will reach 270 degrees Fahrenheit. After 3.5 minutes of sterilized time and 1 minute of dry time, the test cycle is complete. Open the chamber door at the conclusion of the cycle and, wearing your personal protective equipment, carefully remove and open the DART test or Bowie-Dick test pack. Examine the test sheet indicator for complete and uniform color change. The entire cycle is also documented on the test cycle printout. The vacuum leak test should be performed at least once a week. It automatically checks for leaks in the piping and door seal. To ensure valid test results, always run a warm-up cycle before performing this test. When the warm-up cycle is finished, initiate the vacuum leak test. The sterilizer chamber must be empty while running this test cycle. From the Test Cycles menu, press the Leak Test button. Again, the vacuum leak test cycle values are pre-programmed and cannot be adjusted. The entire vacuum leak test cycle is also documented on the printout and includes a leak rate value. A leak rate of less than 1.0 millimeters of mercury per minute is considered acceptable. Leaks greater than this need to be addressed by service or maintenance personnel who can monitor the airtightness of the system and make repairs or adjustments as needed. Only gravity cycles should be run if the leak rate is greater than 1.0 millimeters of mercury. It is important to note that the vacuum leak test is not a substitute for a DART or a Bowie-Dick test. STERIS recommends inspecting the interior chamber and chamber drain strainer each morning before running the daily warm-up cycle. Start by cleaning the chamber drain strainer, preferably after the final cycle of the day has been run. Remove it from the drain in the bottom of the chamber. Remove any obvious debris and, if necessary, clear the screen in the strainer using a brush, wire, or similar tool. Once it has been cleared of obvious debris, reverse flush the strainer under running water. Replace the strainer in the chamber drain. The chamber itself needs to be cleaned regularly, but due to differences in water quality, frequency of use, and other factors, no specific frequency interval is recommended. Base your cleaning schedule on local water conditions and the chamber's appearance. You'll want to clean the chamber with a mild detergent solution when spills or other soiling have occurred in the chamber, periodically to maintain sterilizer cleanliness and appearance, and when processing materials that may be detrimental to the sterilizer, such as chloride-containing substances. If applicable, the shelf assembly must be removed before cleaning the chamber. Remove shelves from the rack. Use a 1/8-inch hex wrench to loosen but not remove the set screws at the front of the rack assembly. Remove the rack assembly from the chamber. Wash the inside of the chamber and the shelf assembly with a mild detergent solution such as Liquid Jet 2 instrument detergent or the current STERIS equivalent. Once the chamber is clean, replace the shelf assembly. Close the emergency manual exhaust valve. A professional cleaning of the chamber is recommended on a yearly basis. Whenever the line becomes clogged, flush the chamber drain. To do this, you turn off the steam supply valve. Wait until the jacket pressure is 0, and wait until the chamber has cooled to room temperature. Remove the chamber drain strainer and clean if necessary. Pour a solution of 1/4 cup of instrument detergent and 1 pint of hot water into the drain, and place the strainer back in the drain. We'll now cover changing the printer paper roll. Make checking the paper part of your daily routine. If you see the color stripe, the roll should be changed. To change the roll, first press and release on top of the printer outer door. Tear the paper between the take-up spool and printer. Remove the take-up spool from the drive by inserting your fingers in the cavity and lifting slightly to pull the spool out. Remove the used paper from the spindle. Open the access door and remove the old paper roll, gently pulling any remaining tape out of the printer roll mechanism. Insert the new paper roll. Insert the end of the paper into the printer roller mechanism just behind the ink cartridge. Press the paper feed button on the printer until the paper advances through the printer mechanism and ink cartridge, exiting through the front. Continue pressing the paper feed button until about 18 inches of paper hangs out of the printer. Insert the end of the paper into the slot on the take-up spool. Coil the paper around the take-up spool until it's secure. Reinstall the take-up spool in the bracket and manually roll up the slack paper. Close the printer door. The printer ink cartridge should be changed as soon as the type on the printouts is noticeably light or faded, and before printouts become difficult to read. Tear the paper between the take-up spool and the printer. Then press on the right end of the ink cartridge until the left end of the cartridge pops out of the printer. Slip the cartridge off the end of the paper. Slip a new cartridge over the paper, making sure the paper slides between the ink cartridge and ink ribbon. Install the left end of the cartridge first, then push the right end in, snapping it into place. Retighten the ribbon by rotating the wheel on the left side of the cartridge a quarter turn. Close the printer door. In addition to routine maintenance, regularly scheduled preventive maintenance is essential for assuring peak performance and avoiding unscheduled downtime. Refer to the operator manual for a preventive maintenance schedule. Certain preventative maintenance activities must be done by a STERIS service technician or a STERIS trained service technician in your facility. To schedule a maintenance appointment with a STERIS service technician, call 800-333-8828. As the pace of the healthcare environment increases, so do the demands on your SPD. Our professional field service technicians are available 24/7 to resolve any maintenance issues that may occur. STERIS also offers 4 on-site preventive maintenance programs. These programs are designed to help ensure your equipment will be operating according to factory specifications and to protect your capital investment. Ask your STERIS representative for